The following clip shows that Rupert Murdoch operates illegally in both the U.S. and England.
Have you ever found yourself walking down the aisle of your local grocery store and then you get stopped in your tracks by something like this? Ah! Not actually some poor guy who has managed to get himself pinned underneath the very heavy rack of the medicine aisle. No, this is a sort of cool, original-looking advertisement placed on the floor. It is an ad placed, in this case, by a painkiller. It's designed to catch your eye and make you want to buy their product. No matter where it hurts, this painkiller thingy targets your pain. Okay, look up, now buy that particular painkiller right there in the aisle. These are called floor ads for obvious reasons. Floor ads are big business across this country because, come on, if you're a company who sells stuff in supermarkets, wouldn't you want a big shiny floor ad featuring your product on the floor like this one? A few years ago, one of the biggest floor ad companies in the entire country, a company called Floor Graphics, mysteriously started losing some of its top clients. Floor Graphics was not losing its clients because people didn't want floor ads anymore. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want floor ads? They started losing their clients because a rival company in the industry was starting to steal their clients. Floor Graphics was just this small firm based in New Jersey, but a really big player had entered the floor ad arena. A big player with an even bigger corporate parent, a company you may have heard of, called News Corp, decided that it wanted to get into the floor ad game. News Corp had a U.S.-based company called News America Marketing that was already involved in the supermarket advertising business, but it really wanted in on those awesome floor ads. The only problem for the big Rupert Murdoch-owned News America was that this small New Jersey company, Floor Graphics, was dominating this market. You say problem, News Corp says opportunity. News Corp set its sights on taking this little New Jersey company down, and they had just the right type of guy to do it. The head of News America at the time was a man named Paul Carlucci. According to a Fortune magazine profile, quote, Carlucci once tried to motivate his sales force by playing a scene from the film The Untouchables, in which Al Capone crushes a rival's skull with a baseball bat. Who better to take down this puny little New Jersey floor graphics company than the baseball bat crusher guy? Rupert Murdoch's News America began to play hardball with Floor Graphics, so much so that in 2006, Floor Graphics finally had enough. They filed an unfair business practices lawsuit against News America. Floor Graphics said News America has engaged in illegal computer espionage by breaking into our password-protected computer system and obtaining proprietary information. Computer espionage, hacking. Where have I heard this before? This complaint, filed in New Jersey federal court in 2006, accuses Rupert Murdoch's American Supermarket Services Company of repeatedly and systematically hacking into their computer database. On at least 11 separate occasions, News America intentionally, knowingly, and without authorization breached our secure computer system and repeatedly accessed, viewed, took, and obtained our most sensitive and private information. How did they know that it was News Corp that was responsible? Quote, our investigation traced the unauthorized access to a computer with an IP address registered at the time to News America. So, was Rupert Murdoch's News Corp guilty of hacking into a competitor's computer system and then stealing all of their sensitive material? Dunno. After just a few days of testimony in the trial, News Corp settled the case out of court, reportedly for about $29 million. Shortly after settling, News Corp then bought the company that had just accused it of hacking. Little fish meet big fish. Chomp. About 12 hours from right now, Rupert Murdoch and his son James Murdoch will be testifying before the British Parliament about the phone hacking scandal that is now threatening to take down at least some of the Murdoch media empire. Ahead of what is expected to be must-see TV, live here on MSNBC, naturally, News Corp has provided a statement to NBC News which essentially sets up the Murdoch defense. It reads in part, quote, we reject the notion that the issues at News International are somehow indicative of our culture. This was an isolated incident. This hacking stuff, this is not how we at News Corp do business. It was one little paper. The rest of us don't even recognize that behavior. That argument is key to Rupert Murdoch surviving this scandal. This was a News of the World problem, they're going to say, not a Murdoch Inc. problem. The only problem with that defense, oh, hello there, Mr. Floor Ad guy. Spare a Motrin for Mr. Murdoch? As David Carr, the excellent media reporter for the New York Times, wrote today, the way that News Corp cleaned up this alleged U.S. hacking scandal with the Floor Ad company, essentially paying large sums of money to sweep the whole thing under the rug, That has sort of been the way they've been operating here in the U.S. for a while now. Mr. Carr reporting that News Corporation has paid out about $655 million to make embarrassing charges of corporate espionage and anti-competitive behavior go away. Amazing what money can do. And if you are wondering, as you should be, whatever happened to that News Corp executive who motivated his staff by playing the Al Capone skull-crushing with a baseball bat movie scene? Whatever happened to good old skull-crushing Paul Carlucci? He got promoted. He's now publisher of Rupert Murdoch's own New York Post. Ta-da! Joining us now is David Carr, media columnist for the New York Times. His column this morning brought up News Corp's extreme business tactics in the U.S. Mr. Carr, thanks very much for being here.
A pleasure to be with you, Rachel.
There is reporting from Bloomberg News tonight that News Corp directors are considering replacing Rupert Murdoch as CEO of the company, elevating the company's chief operating officer, Chase Carey, to the top position. CNBC is reporting that no such meeting took place. Do you place much stock in these reports, and how big a deal would it be?
It would be a massive deal. It's hard to imagine a News Corp without Rupert Murdoch. Those of us who've covered the beat have a kind of Stockholm syndrome where we've lived with Mr. Murdoch so long we couldn't imagine life without him. I do not think Bloomberg was suggesting that everything depends on his testimony tomorrow. Tomorrow depends on him retreating and apologizing, two things he's not very good at. So I think we can assume it's not going to be a great day for Rupert Murdoch, but the idea that they're going to pivot from that and immediately replace him with Chase Carey, I'm not buying it.
In terms of his, I guess in terms of the scope of his culpability, is it key to isolate this as a News International or even a News of the World problem if these types of business practices can be shown to extend throughout the empire? Is that the key to the extent of his culpability?
I think that from a business perspective, it's okay that Britain is on fire. I mean, that's the heart of many of his own interests in terms of the papers and where a lot of his talent is. But in a business sense, it's not that big of a deal. If the flames leap the shore and head across to America, in a sense they already have, Les Hinton, the publisher of the Wall Street Journal, is now out. The market cap of News Corp is down. There's stories like the one I worked on and others that are bringing broader issues of culture into question. It's really important that they somehow contain it, but every ledge that they have built, okay, here's Rebecca Brooks, here's Les Hinton, the beast just keeps eating. The story will not quit.
Does the size of the story and therefore the height of the flames and therefore their chance to bridge other continents depend on how much damage this does to David Cameron and the British government? To have both the head of Scotland Yard and the #2 cop at Scotland Yard and the communications director at Downing Street for Cameron himself all either resigned or arrested at this point, it seems like the political fallout in Britain is still really continuing.
I think it's all of a piece, and it makes the story so darn interesting that it's tough to look away. The Wall Street Journal editorialized today suggesting that people like you, people like me, were far too interested in this, and we're engaging in a kind of schadenfreude by taking joy in the pain and misery of Mr. Murdoch and the people that work there. At the same time, if you looked at the front page of the Wall Street Journal, splashed, big story, 3 more stories inside. So you have an editorial saying, you're ganging up on us. Well, hey, your own paper, the biggest, most important business paper in the world, saw fit to publish 4 big, hard-hitting stories about it.
Right after the "you can cut the Schadenfreude with a chainsaw" line, which I actually thought was a great line.
Not bad.
While being insulted by it, I also admired the insulter. Within the same paragraph, we get, the us baddies and the rest of the media, they want their readers to believe, based on no evidence, that the tabloid excesses of one publication somehow tarnish thousands of other News Corp journalists across the world, making the case immediately that the isolatability of the crime is key to its importance.
I think it's important for people to think of News Corp as a free-floating nation state that operates by its own rules, that rounds off corners wherever it can. It takes regulatory and tax advantage of whatever jurisdiction it operates in. For the most part, those of us who cover the story have admired their aggression and their ability to win over and over. It was assumed that they colored just up to the line, not outside the line. I think part of what's going on is that illusion of sort of invincibility, that Mr. Murdoch will get whatever he wants, whether it's the Times of London, whether it's the Wall Street Journal. has been blown away. And there's a kind of, at least in Britain, a kind of British Spring under where nobody would ever say anything about this guy. And in Parliament tomorrow, you can bet people are going to be screaming at the top of their lungs. It's going to be a rugged day for both Murdochs tomorrow.
David Carr, media columnist for the New York Times. It's nice to have you here. Thank you for coming in.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Thanks.